Welcome everyone to skill number 4, the follow-up. Now listen, follow-up covers really 2 topics. One is getting people in conversation and keeping them in conversation, setting your right sort of expectation. And the second part is answering questions and dealing with objections, overcoming objections, because that used to strike fear into my heart. So we're going to cover both of those today. I'm very excited to be able to provide this information to you. And I've got a couple different resources that we're going to utilize today. One is from a recent course that I did on how to recruit 20 people in 30 days. I talk about follow-up in a kind of unique way, and I want you to check out this training. And we're going to deal with the first part first, which makes sense, logical, right? And then we'll get to objections after that. So check it out. Follow up. Follow up. Now, I used to never follow up. When I'd go talk to people, and if they said, "Oh, I'm thinking about it," or if they said, "Oh, I'm not sure, I need to talk to my spouse," or whatever, I would just avoid them. Oh, they're not ready, and some will, some won't, so what? Next. And I would just keep moving. And I want you to understand a couple things about follow-up. The first thing to understand is you're asking people to make a business decision, to actually start a business. Most people have been trained to be employees for their whole life. You're asking people to start a business. And then we expect them to say, "Oh, sure, sign me up." Because the price is so low and it's so easy to do, so flexible, all that stuff. And all that stuff's true. But here's another thing that's true. Most people need a little bit of time to kind of let this sink in, to feel more comfortable with this decision, to get a little bit more information. And the most frustrated people in network marketing are the people who they themselves saw the opportunity and they said, "Yes, I'm ready to go. I'm in. Let's go." If that's you, you've probably been frustrated ever since because you talked to somebody and they're not ready to go in the first exposure. So there's something called the clock dial. And if this is high noon, right? And the clock dial moves, and people are on different parts of the clock dial. So let's say the clock dial is at 3 p.m. or 3 a.m., whatever. Say 3 o'clock. Clock dial's at 3 o'clock. And what that means for somebody is something's happened in their life that they don't particularly like. Maybe something's changed in their work, something's changed in their cash flow, something's changed with their bills, something's changed that's caused them to be a little dissatisfied, but nobody else knows. They're the only one that knows, okay? So 3 p.m. people, or 3 o'clock people might be open, but you know what they're more interested in? Fixing the problem. They're not interested in starting something new. They're more invested in what they're currently doing, and they're trying to fix whatever situation that they're in. Okay? If they got a big problem at work, they're trying to fix that problem at work. If they got a big problem with the bills, they're trying to fix that problem with the bills. You know what I mean? So 3 o'clock, something's happened. They're the only one that knows, and they're trying to fix it. 6 o'clock. Now they're not the only one that knows. They know that something's wrong. Now the family knows that something's wrong. Other people know that something's wrong. And it's like DEFCON 4. I mean, it's really a difficult situation, and they're in scramble mode. Okay? 9 o'clock it's become obvious that if something doesn't change, they're in big trouble. Okay? They've got to change, otherwise they start to be open basically between here and here. They start to be open to opportunity. High noon, they're saying, "Sign me up. I'm ready to go. Sign me up. That's high noon. Okay? So we're going to be talking to as many people as possible, and we're going to be following up, but we're also going to accept the fact that not everybody's going to be at high noon. You're trying to catch them between 9 and noon. Here, they got ego involved, and they're either everything's going great, well, oh, there's a problem, but they're invested, they get their ego involved, and they're not really ready to go look at something new. They don't want to give up on fixing the problem that they have. Here, it's getting pretty bad, but they're still, they're going to fight through it. Here, it's over. It's clear that something's got to change. The old path is not going to do it. Maybe they got fired here. Maybe they got, demoted here. Maybe they got a huge tax bill here that created a problem for them, or they got a big, medical bill here, and this is what they have going on is not going to solve it. They got to do something. This point is they got to do something. Here is their sign me. So these modes, you can still sign people up in every place of the clock dial, but this is where the money is. This is where people are like, I've been waiting. I've been looking for something. I'm ready to go. So we're going to keep following up, and this could change in a moment. This could change. You talk to somebody in the first day of your 20 and 30, and they're here. Day 5, they're here. Day 10, they're here. Day 15, they're just like, okay, I got to do something. They're here. So here, they're not interested. They're invested in something else. They're focused someplace else. Here, they have a slight interest, but they're still distracted by other things. Here, interest is getting pretty high. Here, sign me up. Okay? So we're going to be following up in this 30 days and also beyond this 30 days. And we're just going to accept the fact that we're going to talk to enough people and we're going to follow up professionally to be able to find them in a moment where they're ready to be open. Same prospect, not open, maybe open, open. Same prospect. Okay? So we've got to get good at follow-up. Follow-up, it takes an average. If you're doing face-to-face interactions with a prospect, it takes between 4 to 6 exposures for a person to make a decision and join. Between 4 and 6. If you're talking to them on the phone, you're sending them a text message, if you're sitting down with them for coffee, whatever it happens to be, 4 to 6 exposures. Now, if you're just doing social media, 15 to 30 exposures. Using social media. Why? I mean, I tell the story. Have you seen any ads for the MyPillow people? Hi, my name's Chuck Lindell or whatever his name is, Mike Lindell, and come buy MyPillow because MyPillow is amazing. Go to mypillow.com to buy the best pillow ever. Now, I've seen that ad hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Marina has asked me to buy a MyPillow, and I still haven't done it, even though I intend to. So I've seen probably 1,000 times online and hundreds of times on television. And I have somebody in the family saying, yes, do it. But if somebody gave me an easy just made it easy for me, I would do it. But even though I'm intending to, it's taking more exposures for me to finally pull the trigger and do that. See what I'm saying? So if you see an ad that totally fits you, like I saw an ad, sometimes it's one exposure. It's a person's really hungry. I'll give you an example. I saw an ad yesterday that one ad made me buy. And here's why. I'm very inflexible. I can't touch my toes to save my life. No shot. I mean, literally, no kidding. That's about as far as I can go right now. I'm so inflexible. Now, this ad shows a guy, and he's doing the full splits, sitting on the floor, full sideways splits. And he said, I can have you doing the splits in 5 weeks. And I was like, no way. And I read the copy, and he said, I started, and he started same spot as I started. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever, because my inflexibility is creating back problems for me, all the different kinds of things for me. I am invested in getting flexible. I have a person coming to my house right now stretching me. And this guy says, because of his science and the way he's figured it out, and it's a completely different than what everybody else does, that he can have me doing the splits in 5 weeks? What? Fine. I read it all the testimonies. I watched all the videos. The sales page was amazing. Presentation was professional, sharp, cost me $29. I bought. Done. One time. One exposure. Why? Because I've made the decision very recently that I got to get my flexibility in shape. I am here. Straight up high noon. Sign me up. Give me the thing. Here's my money. Okay? Now, if you would have talked to me about that doing the splits a year ago, I was here. I'm not interested. Right? But right now, my back hurts. Right now. Because I'm so inflexible that it's taken my body out of whack, and I've had a personal, physical therapist tell me that if I don't get flexible, I'm going to have back problems the rest of my life. And I see an average guy doing the splits. Now, if I can do the splits, I'll show you if I do. If I can, I'm still hugely skeptical of being able to do the splits. I'd be happy. He told me, right? He was here day one. By his third day, he was touching the floor, touching his toes. By day 7, he was palms to the floor. It would be such a breakthrough if I was palms to the floor. Forget splits. You know what I mean? Splits is like telling people if they join your business, they're going to get rich, right? They might just want to make a few extra bucks and enjoy the product. So for me, I just want progress. So one exposure for that, done. Hundreds of exposures for my pillow. Still haven't pulled the trigger, even though I'm interested. Okay? We need to do the exposures necessary in order to be able to help a person make a decision, make it easy. If we find them at high noon, they're going to buy, they're going to join. If we find them here, it's going to take a little bit of a process. We're going to stay in communication. So we want to go, the only reason for an exposure now, what is an exposure? Anything that helps to educate the prospect. Okay? So it could be a product sample. It could be sit down for coffee and talk about it. It could be showing them the compensation plan. It could be having them watch a video, having them read a magazine, having them check out a clinical study, meeting another person, a 3-way call, a 3-way messenger with your upline, getting them on a Zoom call, having them attend an event, whatever it happens to be. The only reason for an exposure of any sort is to schedule the next exposure. Remember I talked about conversation is the key to business? The only reason for you to have an exposure, you're going to sit down with them for coffee. Okay? Your purpose in that coffee, before you sit down, before you order your latte or whatever it is, your mission needs to be not to close them, not to sign them. Your mission needs to be to schedule the next exposure. When you go walk into Starbucks, your mission needs to be, when I'm done with this conversation, I need to schedule the next one. And I need to schedule it before I leave this one. So, a person, you're sitting down with coffee. We're going to be going from exposure Exposure to exposure, to exposure to exposure. 4 to 6 on average, 15 to 30 if it's online. Exposure to exposure. So let's say you sit down with them for coffee and they say, well, I'm just not sure about the product. So you could, if the product is sampleable, you could have them try the product as another exposure. And you could schedule a time to get back together with them to see how that product experience was for them. Now, you could either gift them a product sample, or you can have them sign up as a customer just to see what the customer experience is like as part of their homework to do the business. If you're going to go buy a McDonald's, you might go walk into McDonald's to see what the customer experience was like and go buy something, right? To see how it all works. Have them try out the product. Have them be a product of the product, right? So if it's not sampleable, let's say it's a service or something, or it's a bigger ticket or whatever it happens to be, if it's not sampleable, maybe it's more information about the product. So you have an exposure and they want to know more, and you could send them to a Zoom or a webinar or a YouTube video or something that explains the product in more detail. Yeah? So you can send them to that exposure and then schedule the time to get together with them after that. And I'm going to talk to you about how to make sure that you book the next exposure. And after that, they did that, and then let you. So first one's coffee, and you're sitting down talking. Second one is a YouTube video on the product. And afterward, you follow up with them afterwards, and they say, well, I got to talk, I need to know more about the compensation plan. Then you could schedule a Skype call with them, and you could sketch it out for them and show them exactly how that worked, okay? And then they say, well, are other people having success? And then you could schedule a 3-way conversation with somebody that's in your business, or you could show them a testimonial of what's going on inside of your business. See what I mean? And then it's next, and then it's next, and it's next, and it's next. Your goal is to never finish an exposure without scheduling the next exposure. Never, ever, ever. Okay? So exposure to exposure to exposure to exposure. Never stop until they make the decision to join. Now, once they've made the decision to join, this doesn't stop. You're going to keep going with exposures. They've joined as a customer. You're going to keep going with exposures until they have made the decision yes or no on the business. If they made a decision yes on the business, you're going to keep going with exposures until they have success in the business, right? And once they have success, you're going to keep going with exposures to help them advance their success in this business. So this is a fundamental thing that we're dealing with. Now, how do you schedule the next exposure? Give me an example. A proper invite for follow-up. Let's say I sit down with somebody for coffee. And we have a chat. I tell them my story. I show them the business. And they say, I need to talk to my spouse. Usually, when a person says, I need to talk to my spouse, that is code word for one of two things. One is, I'm just using this as an excuse to get away from you because I'm not really interested, and I'm just going to put this out there so I can get away and think. That's one. Two is, that spouse has told them in no uncertain terms, don't you dare join another opportunity without talking to me, because if you do, you're going to be in big trouble, buddy. Don't do it, right? So you need to give them some space. Some people say, well, let me talk to your spouse. You're getting in a weird dynamic. Stay away from that. But if you could tell the person, say, let's say I'm talking to a guy. He says, I got to talk to my wife because, we make all these decisions together, right? Fine. What I don't want is for him to go home and try and verbally say what I've been saying to him, because he's going to screw it up. And there's all kinds of dynamics. He's going to say, honey, and she's going to say, don't honey me. And there's going to be all this little stuff that's going on right? So I have to equip him for this next exposure. I say, listen, let me give you the perfect way for your spouse to truly understand, because she might be able to hear it from you, she might not. She might be able to hear it from me, she might not. But there's a video I have here that's on YouTube. It's 30 minutes long. If I gave you a link to this video, would you show it to your spouse? And let your spouse make a decision based upon what she sees there. If I gave you this, sorry. I thought I hit do not disturb, but I didn't. Everybody say hi to Marina. Hi, Marina. If I gave you this link to this YouTube video, would you show it to your spouse? Question number one. If I, would you? If I gave you this link, if I gave you this product sample, if I gave you this magazine, if I scheduled a three-way call, if I invited you to a Zoom, if I invited you to this training that's on Saturday in the local area, if I, whatever, would you? In this particular example, if I gave you a link that you could share with your spouse that would explain it better than you or I could, would you show it to her as part of that conversation you're going to have together to be able to make a decision? If I, would you? Wait for the answer. They'll 99 out of 100 times say yes to that question. If I, would you? This is my secret weapon. This series of questions, my secret weapon. If I, would you? Okay? Next question. When do you think you'll have a chance to see it together for sure? When do you think you and your wife will have a chance to see that video for sure? Okay? When do you think you'd have a chance to use that product sample I'm going to give you right now for sure? Right? So get a time. When do you think you and your spouse, you and your wife could watch this? Yeah, we could watch it, in the next 2 days. Fantastic. So, if I called you after that, you'll have seen it or done it for sure, right? Pardon my writing, but if I gave you a link to a YouTube video that would explain this better than you or I could to your spouse, would you show it to her? Would you watch it together? Yes or no? Yes. When do you think you could see it for sure? I could see it by Wednesday night, for sure by Wednesday night. If they say, I don't know when I could see it, just give me a time for sure. So I don't waste your time and you don't waste mine. Just give me a time that absolutely by then you'll be able to see it. Okay, by Friday. Fantastic. So if I called you on Saturday, you'll have seen it for sure, right? Now they're going, oh, okay, this is a professional process. What's the best number and time for me to call? Call your cell. What time? 10 a.m. on Saturday? All right, fantastic. I've scheduled the next exposure. The next exposure is 10 a.m. Saturday. Understand? See, some people say, I need to talk to my spouse. They have no intention of talking to their spouse. They're just saying words, right? To finish this exposure, finish their coffee, and move on with their day. But they might be like me, somewhere on the clock dial, that if you professionally go through this, you're not going to convince somebody to do something they don't want to do. But if you professionally go through this, you're going to help them, right? So if I go to them and say, if I gave you a link to a video that would explain it better than you or I. It's about 30 minutes long on YouTube. Would you watch it with your spouse as a way for her and you to understand this more completely? Sure. In their mind, they're like, fine, give me the link. When do you think you could see it for sure? Now, internally, on a subconscious level, they're like, oh, this is a business conversation. When do you think you can see it for sure? I'm not so sure. What? Just give me a time for that absolutely positively you'll have seen it. Answering that first question, give them a link, right? You ask, if I would you, they have maybe a 10% chance of watching that video. You ask the second question, when do you think you can see it for sure? You take it to 50%, just from that second question. So if I called you on Saturday, you'll have seen it for sure, right? I just took it to 80%. What's the best number and time for me to call? Cell phone? Want me to text you first? 10 a.m. on Saturday? Fantastic. I'll text you at 10 a.m., make sure that you're clear, and then I'll give you a buzz. All right, talk to you Saturday. And I'm gonna text you right now the link to that YouTube video. Can't wait to hear what you think about it. Okay? Now, I've done my job. My job is to go from the coffee exposure to the video exposure. Now, some people, when you call them on Saturday, you're going to text them, hey, you available? They're going to say, oh, sorry, I didn't have a chance yet. I haven't had a chance to watch it. Okay? Or you call them and they say, I haven't had a chance to watch it. Life got in the way. I got too busy. You could get mad at them, and I used to do that, and it doesn't work out well. I would not suggest it. Or you could just say, that's no problem. When do you think you could watch it? For sure, for sure. Okay? And I literally say, no problem. And I say, for sure, for sure. Play with this. I'm telling you it works. And then I would go through this process. So if I called you after that, you'll see it for sure, right? All right, what's the best number and time for me to call? All right, boom. And I've just scheduled the next exposure. I get to the next exposure. You've seen it. All right, what'd you like best? You get into another conversation. They say, you know what? I just don't understand how this thing works financially. Say, no problem. If we got online and we just did a FaceTime or a Skype conversation, do you have Skype? Yeah, I do. Or do you have FaceTime? Yeah, I do. If I got online and I showed you how the compensation plan worked, would you be willing to take the 15 minutes in order to be able to learn how it works? Because I think you're going to love it. All right, when do you think you could do that? When are you available? Let's schedule a time. All right, fantastic. I scheduled the time, and now I've scheduled the next exposure. I schedule the time, I do that thing. Afterwards, they might have some more questions. And then I take them to the next thing, and I use this process to do it. Whatever the next assignment is, if I give you this solution, would you take the solution? When do you think you could take the action for sure? If I called you after that, you'll have seen it or done it for sure, right? What's the best number and time for me to call? Fantastic. My goal is to just keep this going. Exposure, 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 exposure. Using this with assignments, having a list of things that's not just my voice. There's video links, there's Zoom calls, there's events, there's product itself, there's literature, there's clinical reports, there's website information, there's other leaders that I'm going to be using in these exposures. I'm going to introduce them to other people. I'm going to let them see the big picture. All different kinds of things. But the goal is continue the exposures. That's it. Now, what you want to do is condense this as much as possible, and you need to be patient. In this process, I used to do this just for inviting people to events. I was so good at this. Oh my gosh. Once I had an exposure with somebody, it was very difficult for that person to avoid the next exposure with me. And I took people that were here on the clock dial. They were not ready at all. And because of exposures, I swung them through so they were in the zone where they're ready to make a decision. So it's like, they're not going to make a decision they don't want to make. But I'll give you an example. If you're dating somebody and you're hanging out with them a lot and you're seeing them a lot, there's lots and lots of exposures. If there is a chance for the two of you to get together, the exposure is going to help a lot. Like, I'm not interested, not interested, not interested, not interested, then you're making out. See what I mean? Just like, nope, 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 not dating, nope, nope, I'm ready. Let's go. What happens? And the other thing I will tell you, with these exposures, an entrepreneur, somebody who has either entrepreneurial background or entrepreneurial hopes and dreams, if they get exposed to a business of any kind, they can't help but have their imagination start to go to work. They can't help it. You start talking about the product, they're going to start thinking about prospects that are going to like that product. You start talking about business, they're going to start thinking about people that maybe they could have to join their team. You start thinking about markets and product categories and different kinds of things, they're going to start thinking about, well, is this for real? But if you do it one time, you don't really capture their imagination. If you keep the exposures going, an entrepreneur is going to pick this apart and get excited. That's what's going to happen. But you have to keep the conversation going.